Are you happy with your life? If you're on social media all the time, that in itself is a recipe for unhappiness. You're not socializing, you're not walking on the beach, you're not cooking, you're not learning the guitar, you're not living your life. Curiosity, inspiration, love, gratitude, play, interest, hope, optimism. So we can think of these almost like nourishment, like good calories. You don't keep living the same lives over and over and over again, which becomes a recipe for unhappiness. Extroverts are happier. They're happier not just by virtue of being an extrovert, but the behaviors in which extroverts engage in allow them to be happier. Lots of good data showing that happier companies do make more money as a result of people being more productive, higher performance, less sick, less presenteeism, and everything else. So it's finding happiness in things that we can do repeatedly over time that are easy and that don't depend on the promotion, the marital status, things that you can't just like make happen like that.
What if happiness isn't something you find, but something you build? But let's be honest, in a world where everyone's busy, stressed, and hustling for more, happiness can feel like a moving target. Hi, welcome back to the Gayu Lewis Podcast, a space where we talk about women's health, midlife, and well-being beyond the surface. I'm your host, Gayu Lewis, a board-certified integrative nutrition health and menopause coach, and today we are diving into a topic that most of us think we understand until life happens: happiness. Joining me today is someone who spent an entire career studying what truly makes us happy. Dr. Louise Lambert. She's a psychologist, researcher, and one of the region's leading voices in positive psychology and well-being. Her work focuses on helping people train their minds for happiness, not by ignoring life's challenges, but by learning how to thrive through them. In this episode, we'll be unpacking the real signs of happiness, why success doesn't always make us happy, how to find joy when we are stressed or overwhelmed, and the small daily habits that actually move the needle of well-being. If you've ever thought, I have a good life, but why am I not really happy? This conversation is for you. Dr. Louise, thank you so much for being on this podcast today.
My pleasure. Hi. Nice to be here.
We all talk about happiness so casually, right? I want to be happy, but very few of us actually stop and pause to actually define what happiness is. What is happiness?
So these are great questions. And I think most of us struggle with what is happiness because we don't teach it at school. So we grow up, many schools today talk about mental health. We talk about depression. We talk about anxiety. We talk about everything not to do. And then we just kind of stop there. The conversation doesn't go any further. And so positive psychology is really a new branch in psychology where we're starting to define, measure, and look at what does the evidence actually tell us which works. So to answer your question, what is the definition of happiness? So first of all, we never use the word happiness in positive psychology. It doesn't really mean anything. Instead, we use things like life satisfaction, quality of life, positive emotional experiences, what else? Meaning, purpose. So there's a lot of different proxies for having a good life. So I think one of the errors that people make is they focus on happiness. I need to be happy. And it's like, again, it's that moving target. So it's more about thinking, what is the emotional quality that I want to be able to feel more often in life? So the way I define it, but also the way science defines it, is looking at, life satisfaction. Are you happy with your life so far, generally? And then the second one that's really important to think about is positive emotional experiences. So do you experience positive emotions frequently enough? So things like curiosity, inspiration, love, gratitude, play, interest, hope, optimism. So we can think of these almost like nourishment. Like good calories, things we need to get more of on a daily basis. And of course, try to limit negative emotional experiences, not avoid them because we can learn from those as well. But really to be focusing on how do I want to feel and how do I want to create my life so I can feel good about it. In short.
Yeah.
That's a long answer.
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
No, but you spoke about a lot of things, but generally as human beings,
Yeah.
we are very materialistic people. When we have a success, a great career, or a lot of money in general, we kind of hope at that. There's a hope, I would say the word, that, oh, I'll be happy when I get so and
Yeah.
so. But when you said happiness is not that, how do you help people differentiate?
Yeah. And I think you raise a good point. So a lot of people live that way.
Yeah.
I'll be happy when I get married, when I get a good job, when I get a promotion, when I get more money, when I get kids, when I get this or this. So basically it means you're never going to be happy because you keep moving the goalpost. So when we define happiness as the emotional quality on a daily basis, this is a lot easier to get actually. So it makes happiness attainable. So rather than a state, happiness becomes something to do and something to experience. And so part of what we do in positive psychology is really teach people, what do we mean by happiness, but also what does the science actually show us? So it's not that getting things doesn't help us be happy. It's just that it's not sustainable. So I get a new pair of shoes. Great, awesome, wonderful. Okay, well, how long's that going to last, right? By the time you hit the parking lot and you go home again, the joy is gone already. So it's not that we want to discount these things, but we want to look for sustainable forms of happiness. So this is relationships. This is learning something new. So maybe learning to play the guitar, developing positive experiences, maybe going to the beach twice a week. So it's finding happiness in things that we can do repeatedly over time that are easy and that don't depend on the promotion, the marital status, things that you can't just make happen like that. So education around what is happiness, and again, what does the evidence show us really matters, makes a big difference when it comes to happiness. And that's what positive psychology strives to do.
Oh, very, very interesting. But I'm very curious to understand one thing. Do men and women pursue happiness differently?
Some of it is our personality. So if we think about what contributes to happiness, and our personality contributes a lot. So this could be good news if you have optimistic parents. It might be bad news if they're kind of depressed and miserable. I'll leave that to you to decide. So one is kind of that genetic makeup that we bring. The other one is how we construe, how we understand the things that happen to us and the choices that we make. So I think sometimes for women, it may be easier because, again, relationships are something that, tend to come more easily. They might be more open to learning. They might be more open to experiencing more positive emotions more frequently. So there are lots of studies showing that actually women are a little happier than men. So maybe gender does play a little bit of a thing there. And then circumstances play a smaller role than we think. And this is something that kind of people get a little bit upset to hear because we want things to blame for why we're not happy. So if you get a divorce, it is going to make you unhappy. And it should. It's the end of something. But over time, our circumstances only account for about 10% of the influence on our happiness. So when we think about the big ticket items, it's really what we do, how we respond. It's about 40%. Genetics is about 50%. It's actually the biggest. And then our circumstances is only 10%, which leaves a big space for us to intervene, act on, and choose how we're going to respond to life so that we can get those positive emotional experiences.
Okay. Kind of leads me to this question. We always do a lot on taking care of our physical wellness.
Yeah.
Okay. And you spoke about the whole thing on positive psychology, working towards, I think, training the head. What can people do? Are there, like I said, can you train your brain to be more happy or have that feeling?
Yeah. And I always feel uncomfortable with this notion of training your brain. Your brain just does what it does. But I think it's about, getting different habits. So we are naturally pessimists. That's what keeps us alive. So looking for the creepy guy in the back alley who might be running after you, to attack you, you need to be paying attention to these things. So part of it is understanding your brain is kind of naturally going to go to the negative. That's just what it does. So our job then is to start sort of showing it, exposing it to new habits. So becoming more optimistic, that might be one different tool. And I want to talk about tools for a moment. So in positive psychology, we develop what is called positive psychology interventions, PPIs. So these are strategies that have been empirically validated and tested in laboratories, community samples, clinical samples. So people around the world, including here in the UAE. So we have lots of studies where, some of my published studies where we've tested some of these interventions, and we know that they work. They don't work equally on everybody, but there's probably about 50 or 60 different interventions, things that people can do. Some of these are cognitive. So in the sense of thinking, how do we think about things that happen to us? How do we change some of our thoughts? So being optimistic would be one of those. But it's not only cognitive, but also social skills. So spending more time with people, maybe not walking up to strangers. I always laugh because I have done this to people, but it's like basically, hi, do you want to be my friend, right? And kind of forcing ourselves to focus more on social well-being. So that's a big avenue of happiness. That is not so much about us, but it's about kind of recreating that social fabric, if you will, community. Definitely physical well-being. We cannot overlook the huge impact that physical exercise has on the brain. That is one you just cannot overlook. And then, of course, the emotional side. How do we change our emotions? So we might be having a really bad day, but there's ways in which we can minimize the impact of negative emotions and start to choose, almost force some of those positive emotions to get ourselves out of these ruts a little bit more easily and moving towards feeling better about our experience in that moment. You can tell I teach in university, right? I talk a lot.
No, I was just, when you said about the whole, when life gets stressful, what do you do? I mean, you teach positive psychology. What is it that you speak to yourself to help you on days that look really difficult?
Yeah. So I use, again, because I know them, there's about 60 different. Some of them I don't like. I know everybody talks about gratitude. That one doesn't work for me. I'm just like, whatever. Doesn't work. So I don't use that one. I use self-compassion a lot. So self-compassion is basically you treat your emotional pain in the same way you would your physical pain. So let's say you've got a broken leg. You wouldn't force yourself to walk on it and chastise yourself and judge yourself because you broke your leg, idiot. Okay, well, that's not going to help. And it's broken. Like, what more do you want to do, right? You would show yourself some compassion. First of all, get a cast on, take it easy, put your foot up, maybe sit at home, watch a bit of Netflix, feel sorry for yourself, and eventually it'll pass. And we can do the same thing with our emotions. So it's not about feeling sorry for yourself, but it's simply about saying, okay, I'm not feeling very good right now. You know what? I'm going to take it easy with myself tonight. I am going to watch a bit of Netflix, feel a little bit sorry for myself, and just sit on the couch and whine, but I'm just going to give myself 45 minutes. So you're allowed to do that. So that's self-compassion. That's one. Again, it depends on the starting point. So if I'm in a really bad mood, it'll be self-compassion. If I'm in an okay mood, but just want to boost my mood, then I might use something called savoring. So savoring is a favorite one of mine. So it's basically just pay attention, right? We're surrounded by goodness. There's magnificent things around us all the time, from the tiny cup of tea to the huge, meeting a friend that you haven't talked to forever. And it's about training ourselves to be present in the moment. So I always take the latte example. You can grab the Starbucks latte, gulp, carry on with your day, or you could go, oh, I love a latte. And really smell the caramel, feel the cup on your hands. And then, they always make some little My Little Pony design on the top of the cup, right? Be excited. Sometimes you get a heart, that's cool. And just enjoy it. And it doesn't take any longer. You're drinking it anyhow, but it's just be in the moment and notice what is around you. It could be a sunset. It could be your favorite song on the radio. It could be just, oh, wow, I grow tomatoes on my balcony. So I go out every morning and I'm like, oh, this little tiny tomato, right? How exciting. So they're small and they're silly, but that's what life is. And part of it is, again, teaching people what is happiness. If you think happiness is a 10 out of 10, disco ball falling from the sky, wow, I won the lottery, then you're almost never going to be happy. You've put the standard too high. That stuff rarely happens. You might get that once in your life. But if you put the standard much lower to a 1 out of 10, that counts. You will start to notice you are a lot happier than you realized, and all this stuff is around you. You're just not paying attention. So savoring is another one I use. Capitalization. So this is, when somebody gives you good news, capitalize on it. So what this means is being happy for others helps them magnify their own positive emotional experience, but you can take their positive experience and use it for yourself. Oh my gosh, that's cool. Wow. Okay, you just gave me an idea for something I could do. Use the positivity to boost yourself, but actually that didn't come from you, it came from them. So you can share a positive emotional experience and you can amplify it together. So that's another skill. What's another skill that I do? Well, you know what? Maybe it's a good time to talk about this. So I've developed the Dubai 30-30 Happiness Challenge. And for those of you who are in Dubai, you are well acquainted with 30-30 Fitness Challenge. So last year, I was like, wait a minute. We do fitness. We take care of our bodies, but somehow we're like, I don't know where the head went to. We forgot this part up. So paying attention to our mental fitness is a good way to improve our physical fitness, because we know that when people are happier, they are healthier. But also when you are physically healthier, you're also happier. So this year, for the first time, the Dubai 30-30 Fitness Challenge has introduced mental fitness. So not just me, but everybody can now take part in this as well. So I've developed a challenge for organizations, HR, employees. They can follow along. 30 days of positive psychology interventions. Individuals can also take part as well. So there are 30 different interventions in here. Again, I'm a bit of a research nerd, so every intervention has the study where it came from. And people can learn at least 30 of these 60 different interventions so that they can start using it, practicing it, and understanding that it's not just about being less miserable. It's about adding positive emotional experiences to our days and creating better lives so that we can be happier.
Okay.
And here's one way to do it.
So you said you've differentiated this for an individual, for an employee, and for HR. Talk me a little bit more on why you differentiated this.
Yeah. So they are the same interventions. So the reason I did this one, because my mom's in Canada and she's like, well, if I'm not in Dubai, how do I take part? Okay, never mind. So I took off the Dubai. Here, you can take part. So I have a whole bunch of people in Canada, my mom's friends in their 80s, my sister's friends in their 60s, and they're all like, we want to be happy. I'm like, awesome. This is for you. All right. Why did I do the workplace? So a couple of reasons. One, we know that when people are happier, they're more productive at work. So and this isn't just anecdotal, but we have good studies that have come out in the last year or two, deliberately and directly tying happiness scores at work with productivity. And so one study that came out 2024, and I cite it in the HR book, used the S&P 500 index. So looking at the companies where employees rated themselves happier, they developed a fictitious 100, the wellbeing 100 index, which doesn't exist, but it should. And what they did is they tracked that performance against the S&P, finding that if that had been a proper index, that would have outperformed the S&P average. So again, lots of good data showing that happier companies do make more money as a result of people being more productive, higher performance, but also less sick, less presenteeism, and everything else. So for organizations, it's an easy way to start at least introducing the conversation around happiness. And happiness has a bit of a bad rap. We tend to equate it with, pizza pops and stupid parties and whatever. Yeah. But I always come back to, look, if the S&P 500 is now tracking happiness, They don't waste their money or their time. And again, because the outcomes are there. So this is a way to begin the conversation. It's a way to get employees to start taking it seriously, but also to get managers, senior leaders, HR, communications, CSR, to get everybody on board around what do we mean around happiness. So in the HR copy, what I've included is communications prompts, instructions for what managers can do, instructions for what HR can do, different daily activations for each of the 30 interventions, 30 days. Also ways that you can tie in the community. So looking at all of your different stakeholders. So whether you're a school, one of which has now contacted me and they're like, we're all over this. I'm like, fantastic. Whether you're in pharmaceuticals, whether you're in manufacturing, doesn't matter. There are ways that you can pull in your stakeholders. So in the same way that we think about ESG, that you want to start thinking about, all of your vendors, are they also thinking about ESG requirements? You can do the same thing around happiness. So the companies you work with also thinking about how to take better care of their employees. So in short, the HR copy is full of things that we can do from an organizational perspective. The employees, they got an easy ride. Just follow the activities, make yourself happy. And again, why did I do it that way? Because we know, everything I do comes straight from the research literature. When people are happier in life, they bring that to work. When people are happier at work, it helps in life, but actually less so. So it really goes from life to work. So if we can help employees just be happier in life overall, generally, that comes back to work. So it's a good way to bring people together. It's a good way to have some fun during the 30-30. It's also a good way to improve health outcomes, productivity outcomes, and just have a good time because life is too short to be miserable.
Couple of questions. How long does it take for a person to do a single challenge? The reason I'm asking is generally, employees or anyone, are they yes, I'll do it. It's like, will it take too long? And then I'm not going to invest my time. So how long would it take?
Like 30 seconds. Look, savoring, the one I talked about. You're having your latte anyway. Just enjoy it. Like that's the intervention. Pay attention. That's the intervention. Another intervention, day 6, positive reminiscing. So this is another one I like because some days, let's be honest, there's nothing good going on, right? You're stressed at work, you have teenagers and you're stuck in Dubai traffic. So you can use positive reminiscing, thinking about what's a great positive memory that I haven't thought of for a while, a time when I was really on a high and it was just like, yeah, awesome. And then you leave a voice note for somebody and say, do you remember that time? Do you remember that party we went to? Oh my gosh. Like we had such a good time. We went dancing, da, da, da. And as you're recounting the experience, you are now, so positive emotions change us physiologically. You are now having that physical experience. It's shifting how you think. You're amplifying it and sharing it with somebody else. You just created a positive emotional experience out of something that didn't even happen today. It happened before. So how long does it take you to leave a voice note? 45 seconds. That's that one. Another one, let's find another easy one. Act like an extrovert. This one you can do in about 10 minutes. Act like an extrovert. We know, again, sad news for introverts, but extroverts are happier. And they're happier not just by virtue of being an extrovert, but the behaviors in which extroverts engage in allow them to be happier. So when you walk up to people and you're like, literally, hi, you want to be my friend? How are you? Tell me about yourself. This opens the opportunity for positive emotional experiences, for social connection, for that lift in you learn something new information, you get invited somewhere else on the weekend. So extroverts are happier. Now, that doesn't mean if you're an introvert, you're doomed. But just like you can go to the gym and hate doing it, but you go anyway, same thing. You might not be a natural extrovert, but you can force yourself to do it for 10 minutes.
But would it not push me out of my comfort zone
Yes,
and
exactly.
make me feel like I'm fake?
Doesn't matter. Do it anyway. When you go to the gym and you hate it, isn't that fake? You do it anyway. You still get the benefits. Same thing. So again, when we do these experimental studies, even in people say that, oh, I don't want to do it. It feels awkward. And then they do it and they're like, actually, that wasn't so bad. I met somebody nice. There you go.
Okay. But, I mean, I can understand that these are probably easier to do. But when you're really depressed, when, you don't have any mojo in life, how do you still push yourself to see positive?
So first, don't set the bar too high, right? So it's like saying to somebody, and look, I worked in mental health for many years. When you're at the bottom, you're extremely depressed. Maybe it's time to get on antidepressants, etc. However, positive psychology interventions actually do work best with people with clinical depression. That's where they're the most effective.
Okay.
Now, they work on everybody else too, but when you're really at the bottom, that's where they work well. And it's not that you're going to be like, oh, just be happy. No, this is the worst advice. And what does that even mean, right? But I think it's about, again, you got 60 interventions to choose from. You might want to do something physical. You might want to do something social. You might want to do something cognitive. You might want to regulate your emotions differently. You get to choose, okay? But it might be, I'm going to take optimism as an example. You might not do the, wow, I'm going to have such a great life and I can't wait to see tomorrow. But maybe your optimism is going to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to be hopeful that I'm going to maybe go walk on the beach on Friday. I'm going to force myself to notice 3 good things while I'm out there. I'm going to try to, be a little bit more hopeful about my future and about my ability to take action on it. And maybe that's as good as it's going to get. So we don't want people jumping to a 10. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. If you're at a 0, great, let's get you to a 2. And then from a 2, let's get you to a 3, to a 4. So again, these interventions work. They work very well for clinical depression. And again, we have lots of clinical studies where we've looked at CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, antidepressant medication, positive psych interventions on par. So they work. So I would really encourage, again, forget the word happiness. Just think about it as, how do I develop a good life?
You spoke about don't set your bar too high, then you're kind of then more depressed because you're not able to. But we've got social media.
Oh,
I mean,
that
that just
ignore all that.
gives us this whole fake life, right? And then you start looking at someone else. Oh, they went for a vacation. I couldn't go. Oh, they bought a new car. Oh, look at her. You just start comparing, and then you're kind of preparing yourself towards being unhappy. What do you do when
social media is like the worst thing for happiness? So really, I think we need to really keep things in perspective and also train ourselves. If you're on social media all the time, that in itself is a recipe for unhappiness. Those social comparisons that we make, not good for us at all. But while you're on social media, what are you not doing? You're not socializing. You're not walking on the beach. You're not cooking. You're not learning the guitar. You're not living your life. And so a good life is living it. It's not watching it. It's living it. So we get in this rut where we're observing and we've become spectators, but we need to be participants.
Yeah.
So, sometimes social media might motivate us to be like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. Okay, fine. But if you find that social media is making you unhappy, you know what the solution is.
To put it off.
Put it off. Yeah. And actually go live your life and create your own memories.
Yeah. I know it's easier said than done, but everyone's kind of portrays their life on social media. I mean, you and I are creators, but we got regular human beings also on social media. Like you said, it was a platform to generally talk about your social life in general, but then now it's become where you get influenced. And I've seen a lot of people where they try to portray that, oh, I'm having this amazing, wonderful life, but inside they're really broken. There's this two different lives that they're living. Saying that take off social media, it's easier, but what do you really do with people struggling with this 2 life scenario?
So look, and you're right, to just get off is difficult, but maybe what you can do is at least be more selective about who you're following. So if there's accounts that make you feel particularly bad about your life, stop following them. Right. So I started to change who I follow. Now I'm watching people who make mistakes, say stupid things, are just average. And they're like, hey, I'm I got a great idea. Like, have you ever thought of this? Like, so you can choose your audience as well. It's not because it's coming through your feed that you are forced to follow these people. So it's being a little bit more selective. And, thinking about how long, using your timers. So I set myself 30 minutes on Instagram. At the end of 30 minutes, like the timer cuts out. Oh, now I got to find something to do. so I might read a good old fashioned book, right? But we really need to limit ourselves.
Okay. I had to ask you, you spoke about, the techniques or the interventions you use. But in that way, you spoke about, getting positive, energy from somebody who did something nice. But, we as women, I have to say that we start comparing ourselves, your success. Sometimes I might not take it very positively. I might just say, oh, such good things are happening to Louise. Why not to me? And then you go into the downward spiral.
Yeah, overthinking.
How do you avoid that?
Yeah. So I think part of it is noticing. So I was a spectacular overthinker for many years, and I was just like, give me anything. I will think it to death, right? So part of it is noticing, like, what are you doing right now? You are overthinking, and that goes nowhere. So stop it. So there are times when I will say out loud, just stop. Like, just stop. I'm sure people think I'm crazy, but I'm like, just stop, okay? Stop it. Okay. Okay, take it. So it's really holding ourselves accountable. Like, watch what you are doing. Watch what you are saying. Try to see yourself from the outside. If you saw somebody engage in those habits, what would you think? Not good. Okay, well, stop it. Go do something else, right? So we need to handle ourselves, if you will, and to start taking responsibility for kind of where we let our thoughts go. The other thing I've started to do, and it is good advice, it comes more from the CBT area versus positive psych, but it's really, argue back with yourself. Watch where your thoughts go. It's not because you think something that is true. I can think about robbing a bank. It's very enticing. Am I going to do it? No, I'm not. And I also think it's a dumb idea, but I can think it. So judging our own thoughts, just because you think you've had a bad day, just because you think you're not successful, just because you think this person is better than you, more beautiful than you, that doesn't make it true. It feels like it is because our emotions follow our thoughts. But if you change your thoughts, your emotions will follow. So how are you going to change your thoughts? You can try and stop thinking about it. You can distract yourself with something else. You can have a list handy. And I always recommend people do this. What are your top 10 mood boosters? Keep it on a list, because when you're feeling low, you're not going to remember. So it could be drawing. It could be, I'm just going to go for a walk and focus on something else. It could be, I'm going to call my mom. It could be, I don't care what you do, but you need to have your go-to plan for how you're going to pull yourself out of that mood, because bad moods are very attractive and they take a lot of room and they get comfortable after a while, and we stop noticing what we're doing, and then it's hard to pull ourselves out.
Okay. Is the community kind of help you when, you're trying to be more happy, or like I said, it's the people really help you push you up? I
don't know if they always push you up. If you have somebody to push you up, great. But at a minimum, you don't want people pushing you down. So there's a couple of interesting things happening. So again, I look a lot at the research and different social trends. So one thing we know is that people are spending more time alone today than they did during COVID. That's not good for us. The more time you spend alone, the more you start to believe your thoughts, the more you start to think you're right, you're justified, the more you start to think the world is a certain way. No, it's not. All that's going on in your head, that's not necessarily true. So focusing more on social well-being often is the antidote to a lot of our negative emotional experiences. It's very easy to go down in this spiral and to stay there. And that's what other people do. So good friends will pull you out, but even strangers are really helpful. You might say something that's really pessimistic and they'll go, oh, and they might walk away from you. You just got some good feedback there. That's a way to start checking your thoughts. So if you're not hanging around people enough, when are you getting that feedback? You're not. You start to believe what you think. So forcing ourselves to spend time with people, but also not being afraid to reach out to people. So one of the things I do, and I'll invite you next time, Actually, you know what? I'm doing it on November 1st. So
Yeah.
I'll invite you anyway. So literally, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and I'll be like, oh, this person is like really funny. Oh, and they live in Dubai. Oh, I want to get to know this person. I send them a like really cold call. Hi, you're like super funny. I do this thing at Time Out November 1st, and I'd like to invite you. Would you like to come? And they're like, yeah, great, perfect, wonderful. So then, all these people show up and I'm like, and who are you? I know I invited you, but right. So not being afraid to connect with people. And the minute you do, you've now instantly got a friend, but they lift you by different experiences, different information, different emotional experiences, different perspectives, different ways of seeing things, different. And that's the key also to happiness, is exposing ourselves to different ways of living, different ways of thinking, different ways of doing, so that we don't always stay stuck in a rut. We don't keep living the same lives over and over and over again, which becomes a recipe for unhappiness. So stagnation is a recipe for unhappiness.
Okay, so you're saying just go out, meet more people, get their energies to kind of push you.
Yeah, and also to remind you that people are doing amazing stuff. People are cool. People can be trusted. People probably like you more than you realize. But when you're sitting at home watching Netflix, you're not getting any.
And it's just your internal noise troubling you. The devil inside you is just trying to...
Which just gets louder and louder over time.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff we kind of do to ourselves. And look, I include myself in this.
Yeah.
That was me for a really long time. Until I figured out, like, you cannot, sometimes you can, but it's very hard to change your own thoughts. So rather than fight with yourself, just go plunk yourself in front of someone else and say, tell me about your day. And that will take you out of your thoughts and put you into somebody else's experience. And that will give you enough distance from your own negative emotional experience to free you up to do something different.
Okay. Doctor, when, just wanted to touch base, like I said, I became a health coach because of my own burnout. When somebody is in that stage, you said, you could look at the medical intervention also to kind of pick you up. But then is there anything, like any steps that you would recommend to help rebuild happiness?
So look, basics. I know nobody wants to hear that because it's very boring to say, get your sleep, move your body, and eat well, but that's the truth. So if you're not getting enough sleep, it's very difficult to regulate your emotions. So some people literally are depressed just because they're not sleeping. And they walk around thinking they have depression. No, you don't. You have a sleep problem. Okay. Same with drinking enough water. I know it sounds really silly, but I taught at university for a long time. And sometimes I just had the most like sad looking students. And I'm like, what's going on? And they really think they can't get it together. And then you just ask the simple question, how much water have you drank today? Oh, no, I don't drink water. Okay, I think we've just found our answer. All right, let's start there. So again, when you're dehydrated, it's very difficult to regulate your emotions. When you're not sleeping, when you're not moving your body, this is a battery pack.
Yeah.
And if you're not moving your body, it cannot regenerate. So again, very difficult to manage and regulate your emotions when you got no energy. So that's step one, get the basics cleared. 9 times out of 10, that takes care of everything. After that, if you're still struggling, and you may, we live in a difficult world. I wouldn't be surprised. Then it's about thinking, how do I start connecting with people now? Even when I don't feel like it, I don't care. Push yourself, act like an extrovert. And you don't need to do it for like a 3-hour dinner party. This is a recipe. Like if you're feeling bad, that will make you feel worse. But 2-3 minutes at a time, even 30 seconds. So I'm like the weird person in my apartment in the lift. Hi. People are like, but they laugh and then I laugh. It's giving them a boost. Yeah. It gives me a boost. 8-second intervention. These are easy things.
And you said you're an introvert.
I know, but this is why I do it.
Yeah.
It's 8 seconds. It's not going to kill me. And I know that door is going to open very soon because I live on the 6th floor, so it's easy to do. But find those little tiny moments that are not going to exhaust you or make you feel so weird, like out of your comfort zone. Everybody can do 8 seconds. This is easy. And then it's really thinking about, how am I thinking? How am I What are my expectations for the world? Do I assume everything's going to be awful? Everything's going to fail? It's going to be terrible? People are talking about it. No, they're not. That's you in your head. In fact, the sad reality is that people are probably indifferent. This is the hallmark of being an adult is actually no one notices. So, you might want to start challenging your thinking. And I leave that one at the end because it is the hardest to start battling against ourselves. But often when you're connecting with others, you're going out for your run, you're eating well, this shifts on its own. So you don't have to work that hard at it. So start with the easy stuff, work your way up. And if there's still stuff to do at the end, great. Now you are energized, and you have the fortitude to be able to do that.
I think we spoke so much about happiness. I mean, I'll not say happiness, but more on how to train yourself to,
How to live a good life.
Yeah.
How to live a good life.
Be happy in the small little ones and not look at the big picture. Doctor, I have to ask you this question. It's my last segment. I call it the 1%. 99% of my podcast is about women wellness. Men are a part of our lives too. So we've dedicated this 1% to them. What's your 1% advice to the men in our lives? What can men do better to support women?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? I think it's about realizing that, and this might sound a little counterintuitive, if you want to help women in your life, do your job as a man. Parent your kids. Pick up your socks. Do the dishes every other night. Help with the cooking, right? Do your job. And when you do your job, suddenly your wife does not need to do your job, your kids' jobs, in addition to her job and her parents' jobs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She's going to be so much happier. So you don't need to do things for her. You can, right? I'm not saying not, but if you do your job, that's already helping her do less.
Okay. Amazing. Men, just do your job. Dr. Lambert, before we close, for anyone listening, how do they get in touch to be part of this challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to my website, happinessmatters.org, and you can just put Happiness Matters Dubai and it'll come up. There's a big red banner across the website saying, join 3030, click on it, and it'll take you straight to the page dedicated to this. And again, the links for the books are there. They're also on Amazon, but they're on the page itself. Different advice for how organizations can take part. And then also the individual section on the page is there.
Okay. Before we wrap up, any closing thoughts for our listeners?
Don't try too hard.
Okay.
Yeah. The harder you try to be happy, the harder it is to be happy. Focus on the tiny things and it will come.
Okay. Thanks for some wise words, I must say. That's a wrap for today's episode. I don't know about you. I have learned a lot. I know I'm going to start setting smaller, expectations so that I'm more happier. I think that's a learning for me today. For everyone listening, I hope this episode made you pause, reflect, and maybe even rethink what happiness means in your own life. But the truth is, joy doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from showing up, even on the messy days. If you love this conversation, please make sure to follow the Gayu Lewis Podcast on your favorite platform and share this episode with someone who needs a little reminder that happiness is still possible, even in the chaos. Until next time, menopause, why pause? Let's play.